Hey Tommy, the sedan is dead. Long live the crossover, except this isn't the crossover. It's one of the last sedans on the market. And Tommy and I are here in Hawaii where we rented this, the brand new, yes I said it, Chrysler 300S.
Wow, pretty wild to think that this is one of the last full-size sedans out there. Toyota, of course, announced that the Avalon is no more. Nissan is killing off the Maxima. And what we have left is, well, a pretty small list of vehicles, the Chrysler 300 and of course the Dodge Charger, but the Dodge outsells the Chrysler by a huge margin.
Yeah, it's about 14,000 units last year on the 300 and over 80,000 on the Charger. So it seems like maybe the Charger isn't dead, but this is. But anyway, this is also going away. Chrysler has announced that this will be the last year of production. And Tommy, what's under the hood of this one? Is it the mighty Hemi?
You can still get the 5.7 V8 in the Chrysler 300, but this one is the standard 3.6 liter, the venerable 3.6 liter Pentastar V6. We see it in everything from the Wrangler to the Ram 1500 to the minivan, and there it is in the 300S. We're looking at 300 horsepower mated to an 8-speed automatic feeding the rear wheels.
Yeah, we have it in stubby, of course, and I think this is a engine that over time will prove to be kind of like the old 4-liter in the Jeep, right, where it's probably undervalued and underappreciated now, but this is let's call it the workhorse of the Stellantis brands. And this vehicle, according to published reports, will do 0 to 60 in about 6.5 seconds. If you get the Hemi, it's about a second quicker, so 5.5 seconds. And I got to tell you, Tommy, this is about as Detroit as it gets.
It's pretty wild to think that this generation of 300 came out all the way back in 2011. It was facelifted in 2015. So even the facelift is going on 8 years old. I still think this is a good design. I loved when the original 300 came out when I was just a little kid. The second generation still looks good all these years later. It's crisp, it's angular, and of course, the best angle of any 300's gotta be the rear quarter, the way the deck lid meets the C-pillar here with this crisp line and these vertical taillights. Out back here on this S model, we've got the dual exhaust, we got the blacked out Chrysler badges. The S model also has these 20-inch wheels. You got a slightly different suspension setup, but I gotta say, this car is going to go down in history, I think, as being a really stylish and pretty good-looking vehicle.
So this year you went to the Detroit Auto Show where Stellantis unveiled something special in the 300. You want to tell them what that was?
Yeah, the 300C. So Chrysler is bringing back the 6.4-liter V8. Now, it's not under the SRT branding. It's called the 300C, but it basically is an SRT underneath with a slightly different hood and some other trim modifications. But if you do want that big fire-breathing V8, they are bringing it back for a limited number of options. That vehicle was in like the mid $50,000 range. This one as spec'd out right around 42, 43 grand.
Yeah, they start about 36,000 if you get the bare bones one. And of course, this S model, which is interesting for a rental company, we rented it from Avis, is kind of the top of the line unless you're talking about the SRT version. I do like, the leather interior. I do like the kind of very old school, very classic, very masculine design. I don't like all the black in there.
Well, yeah, this is where you're starting to see that going on 12-year-old interior design. So we've got swaths of black plastic across the dash and of course down the door panels. Now the stuff that you touch actually feels pretty good. So you've got some nice touch points here on the door. You've got a pretty soft center armrest and these bucket-like recliners. These are used in everything from the Charger to the Challenger. They're really squishy and they actually are pretty decent for like a low $40,000 range vehicle. Unfortunately, $40,000 is not that expensive anymore as new cars go. I wish it was, but with inflation, that's kind of, just around the average vehicle transaction price. Good size sunroof though. I love the full panel sunroof. This front portion does open.
Yeah, this car has that magic American quality of being bigger on the outside than on the inside. Because if you look at I'm sitting down as far as I can in the seat, and I do have a tall torso, but still, I'm hitting my head on the ceiling.
Now let's talk about this interior a little bit. So
yeah, this is soft, but my God, is it black? Oh my gosh, there's just so much black in here.
They did try to kind of simulate some fake stitching there across the instrument cluster. And I do actually like the clock, believe it or not. The kind of old school analog clock really does look good in 2023. Now the 300S does have some nice features in here. We've got a full leather wrapped steering wheel, as you can see there.
I love the steering wheel. I mean, this is the way that I love to drive big, meaty, leathery steering wheel. You feel like you're taking this thing by the scruff of the neck and actually driving it.
We have the Uconnect 8.4 inch screen here, and it's fantastically easy to use. Uconnect is actually my favorite system in the industry because it's just so simple and it really is very snappy. We also have hard controls underneath that, so controls for both volume and tune knobs. We also have hard controls for the dual zone automatic climate control. Now, one thing we don't have a hard control for is the heated seats. We do have heated seats. Ventilated seats are optional.
Yeah, you know, I also do like this blue kind of almost menacing purple color that they put in here. I think that's a really interesting touch.
We also have the illuminated cup holders. Did you know that down here? Those illuminate at night. We have a little cover to cover things up.
Yeah, and it's a weird mix of like high quality steering wheel. You know, this knob feels very expensive, and then like a lot of little plasticky switches, plasticky, you know, gear. It's kind of a mishmash. Some stuff, this is plastic, right? The door opener. Some stuff feels expensive and premium, and some stuff feels, you know, cost cutting.
What's interesting is that go back just a few years, and you had so many cars in this class. Everything from the Crown Vic from Ford, right, to the Town Car from Lincoln. You had the Avalon, of course, right? And all of these makes, the Taurus even to some extent, these large sedans are going away, especially with rear-wheel drive. But the Charger and the Chrysler 300 have stuck it out through all, and it's kind of almost a retro experience now to be behind the wheel of such a large boat that's still feeding its power to the rear wheels.
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but I got a feeling the reason this is still soldiering on is because a lot of it is sold to fleets like rent-a-car places, right?
Right.
Because this is a car that you could probably charge a lot of money for because it still feels kind of old school premium, but yet it's not that expensive because, you know, the toolings for this were paid back in the 1800s.
Yeah. This is built, of course, in Brampton, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Canada, yeah,
Up in
exactly
Canada.
right.
Now, the driving experience, one thing that Chrysler did not skimp on is the sound deadening. It's a very quiet interior. This S model does have a slightly stiffer ride than the standard one, so I would probably opt for the standard Chrysler 300 unless you want the V8, in which case you have to get the S spec. But it's very, very isolated from the outside world. And even with the S package, the suspension is very compliant. Not necessarily floaty, but quite compliant.
Yeah, and then I gotta say, you know, I feel like I'm cramped, and maybe because I'm a big guy, but still, I feel like I'm a little bit cramped in this big old American sedan, which is weird, right? And maybe that's because I've been driving a lot of trucks recently, and maybe that's why trucks have become so popular too, Tommy. For, you know, most people, the utility of this is not, you know, on the high scale, right? You can put kind of 4 people in here comfortably, and then you could put some beach stuff in the back. But compared to a pickup truck, you're going to get a lot more utility and a lot more usefulness because, like here in Hawaii, we can't take this off-road.
Well, in a lot of ways, the pickup truck has replaced a full-size sedan.
You're exactly where I was at.
As the family commuter, as a dropping the kids off to school vehicle, lots of space, lots of softness to the ride quality, but a lot more usability. However, I do love the design of this car. And I also like the fuel economy, believe it or not. Even though it's kind of a boat, we're still averaging 24 mpg in a mixture of city and, well, island highway driving.
Yeah, and it's new. I love renting new cars. Only 1,717 miles. So it's not bad, you know, for something as old school as this. I think if you guys, you know, are out there commenting saying, electric cars suck, I can't stand them, then go out and get yourself one of these. Maybe get the Hemi before it goes away. That's what I would do.
Yeah, either the 5.7 or the 6.4. And I actually would love to see an electric version of this. Of course, we have heard about the new Chrysler Airflow project, which is bringing Chrysler into the 21st century with electrification. But I think an old school boxy 300 style EV would be great because it really complements the squishiness and the sereneness of the aura that this car gives off. Of course, aerodynamics would be a question. I don't imagine that the squared off lines on this car are particularly aerodynamic. But I do love that this is one of the last of the breed. You know, America was known for their large rear-wheel drive executive sedans, and those have all since disappeared.
Yeah, you got to think Chrysler's got to be hanging on by the skin of their teeth, right? I mean, basically you're looking at this and you're looking at the car in front of us.
Yeah, but I think they sell a ton of Pacificas.
Yeah?
And keep in mind, 14,000 units is nothing to kind of scoff at. That still is an impressive number considering this car in this generation, what, 12 years old now?
Yeah, but can you sustain an entire brand on a sedan that's, you know, beyond old, and on a minivan that is, you know, a segment that a lot of people shy away from?
Well, I think what we found is that They have for quite some time, right? It's been a little while since they killed off the Chrysler 200, and we haven't seen a lot of other vehicles in their portfolio. So they're holding on to an old portfolio, but it still is paying the bills somehow or another.
Well, I'm going to jump on the highway, and this is where this thing really shines, right? That highway ride where you feel like you are just really in I would say, a magic carpet of soft American classic luxury. That's kind of what this harkens back to.
I wouldn't say that.
You don't think it's that soft?
It's no 60s Imperial, no.
Okay.
it's not that nice.
Not a Lincoln Continental, is that what you're saying? You know, here in Hawaii, man, people love their pickup trucks, right? The Tacoma seems to be, we're on the Big Island, by the way, we're in Kona, and the pickup seems to be the favorite go-to vehicle here. And a lot of traffic. It's also hard to tell because it's just all tourists, so a lot of these cars, and they actually rent Challengers as well. There you go, that's full. It's not bad, huh?
Yeah, we are at sea level, so our perspective is a little skewed because we live at elevation, but it's a pretty solid engine. The Pentastar, of course, makes most of its power way up in the RPM range, so you do have to rev it out to kind of reap the benefits of the power. But the thing about the Pentastar is it's an engine that a lot of people give flack for because it is a little bit of a corporate, well, it's the definition of a corporate V6. But as you mentioned earlier, the reliability metrics on it are very, very impressive. I don't know if I would go as far as to say Jeep 4-liter good, but from the master techs I've talked to, it's pretty easy to squeeze 250,000 miles out of the 3.6 without major difficulties. The engines that preceded this, be it the 2.7 or like some of the other corporate V6s, not very good. But this V6, they use it in everything, so they have to have a well-engineered unit. It's not fancy, no turbocharging. I don't even think it's direct injected still, but it still is a solid powertrain.
So here's kind of how I look at this, right? When I was your age, out of the three that are on the same chassis, I would have definitely gone for the Challenger, right? Because it's 2 doors, you know, bad attitude, which is perfect. And then as I got older, I would have wanted the 4 doors, which is more of the Challenger, of the Charger, I mean. I always get those two mixed up, easy to do. And then finally, now that I'm getting to my age, which we won't talk about, I kind of like the 300 just because it just seems more classy. You know, it seems more, gosh, I hate to say this, but age appropriate in some ways.
Well, I think they did miss an opportunity in this generation of not squeezing that Hellcat engine in. I'm really not quite sure why they did that. They stuck it in the Jeep, and they stuck it in the truck, of course, and the Challenger Charger twins, but it would have been a really cool thing to have that as an option in the 300. That was kind of what made that first gen 300 SRT8 so special. It was just so off the wall when it debuted in the mid-2000s.
Yep.
And they brought it into this generation, of course, but you know, upgrading it to the Hellcat engine would have been awesome.
Yeah, I got to take this, not this one, but the SRT8 version when it first came out. This was what, now 5 years ago, maybe more. I don't know exactly. On to the racetrack at Willow Springs in California. We drove it from LA to Willow Springs, and then we flogged these things. And the sound that SRT8 made, or makes, if you have one, is just glorious. And I think these cars are probably, you know, some of the last swan songs of the Hemi age at Chrysler. And so if you know, do love your Hemis, and there's a lot of guys and gals who are Hemi fanatics, I would say, you know, forego the Jeep, forego the Challenger, forego the Charger, and get yourself the new C version of this with the bigger Hemi. And I think it's going to be something that over time will definitely go up in value. But I like this car. I think it's just a really cool car, and I feel special driving it. And at the end of the day, what more can you ask out of a car than that?
Well, guys, let us know what you think of our review in the comment section below. Is it time for Chrysler to finally retire the 300? And as always, this has been Tommy, and I'm behind the camera. And in front of the camera,
behind the wheel is Roman, saying thanks for watching. Remember, check out alltfl.com if you want to stay up to date on all our podcasts, all of the TikToks that Tommy is publishing. You've been doing RC cars, Tommy. Get out of here. That's crazy.
Yeah, people have been enjoying it. So check out TFL Studios on TikTok or Instagram, and you got a lot of cool short opportunities there if you haven't seen our stuff. And take a listen to TFL Talk Podcast, where we've been knocking out the podcast recently.
You want to try to take this off-road and see how long before we shred our tires?
Yeah, maybe if we had all-wheel drive. I'm not sure if rear-wheel drive is going to be very good.
And that's the other cool thing, rear-wheel drive. You know, the Maxima would still be around if it was rear-wheel drive, but no, it's front-wheel drive. Anyway,
the Maxima would not have been around if it was rear-wheel drive.
That's like a podcast conversation we can have. All right, see you guys next time. Ciao.